Good afternoon, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. My name is Tina Mazzacane. I'm the K-12 Mathematics Coordinator here at the Virginia Department of Education. We welcome you this evening. Well, it's still the afternoon, so this afternoon, and joining us for our second webinar in a series of 3 webinars that will address transition of mathematics instruction to the 2023 Mathematics Standards of Learning during the 23-24 school year. So this particular webinar is focused on prioritization of mathematics content. So today we're going to provide an overview of a document called the Instructional Supports for Prioritization of Content. This resource includes the prominent content changes between the 2016 and the 2023 Mathematics Standards of Learning, and includes instructional notes to support school divisions in making decisions about the prioritization of content during this transition year, 23-24. In conjunction with the existing overview of revisions documents, this document is great in supporting that transition of instruction during this current school year. You can take a look at these 2 documents in unison and based upon your option for transitioning in your school division, determine how to supplement existing curriculum to incorporate content from the 2023 Mathematics Standards of Learning. School divisions will have the authority to determine how best to meet the needs of students when incorporating content during the transition year to prepare for full implementation during the 24-25 school year. So tonight we're going to give you a review of these documents, talk a little bit about the transition from 2016 to 2023, dig more deeply into the prioritization of content, and then give some grade level examples of transition. And please make note that during this particular time and during this webinar, we will be putting some links into the chat, so you can click on the links and kind of join us on web pages that we're talking about. There's also a Q&A feature in our webinar where you can post a question. It goes to our panelists, and our panelists can respond and give you a response to that question. So please make sure as we go through the presentation to use that. You aren't able to use your microphone since we are in webinar mode at this time. So let's start by just doing a quick overview of transition options. The Virginia Department of Education has been working with 26 educators from across the Commonwealth to help us support technical support documents, create technical support documents that will help guide school divisions in implementing the revised standards. We're very pleased that these educators work in divisions across the state. They represent large divisions, small divisions, and all the sizes in between. And their varying perspectives have been really critical in bringing strength to the work that we've been doing, because they're able to talk about the needs from their perspective in their division. And that has been a real treat in being able to allow us to create supports that help all different divisions in implementing the standards. So thank you to those of you in the audience that have helped with those. So in the chat, you'll see that we're going to put a link for a document called Options for Transitions to the 2023 Mathematics Standards of Learning. We did hold a webinar on this already. That was our first webinar. And the document that's been developed supports the transition from the 2016 to the 2023 standards for the current 23-24 school year. And as this slide shows, there are 3 options for school divisions to choose from. The first option is what we would consider a full crosswalk year. That would mean that students would receive instruction not only in the 2016 Mathematics Standards of Learning, but with full implementation of the 2023 standards, kind of intertwined with those 2016 standards. In option 2, a partial crosswalk year, students would receive instruction in the 2016 standards as their primary focus, but then some of the 2023 Mathematics Standards of Learning would be folded in based upon the choices of the division for how they're going to prioritize their key content. And then option 3 is that instruction would be focused solely on the 2016 mathematics standards of learning, and school divisions would use the current school year to prepare for the full implementation of the standards during the 24-25 school year. So these are the 3 options that that particular document outlines for you. And we are going to be focused on prioritization of key content tonight as a new document that we've rolled out this past week. So our VDOE has been collaborating with the transition team, and they've been very busy developing documents supporting the implementation of the standards. So you'll see in the chat that there's going to be a link to the 2023 Mathematics Standards of Learning, and that will take you to this on this next slide, where you'll see there's a whole lot of documents that we've already posted. So these are some of the examples of the different documents that are posted on the 23 Math Standards of Learning webpage. Front and center is the Math Standards of Learning themselves. Those documents exist both as a cumulative K-12 document in PDF or Word format, but also the individual grade levels or courses can be accessed themselves. In addition, in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the revision, the overview of revisions document that has been posted, and that is available in a K-12 format and also in individual grade and course level format for both PDF and Word. The document on the right is the document we just finished talking about. That's that transition options document, and that is available on that web page. And then the new document that we're going to be talking about tonight is called Instructional Supports for Prioritization of Content During the 23-24 School Year. That title is a mouthful. So unfortunately, I think I was the one at the VDOE who came up with it. So I'm kind of stuck with having to say it many times tonight. So you'll see on the next slide that we do have a chart that looks very similar to the chart that currently exists for the 2016 standards, but is now focused on the 2023 Mathematics Standards of Learning. So when you go to that web page link, you'll see if you scroll down a little bit past some of the announcements that this particular chart appears. And many of these documents have just most recently shown up in the last week or two, which includes the overview of revisions documents that we talked about on the last slide. But there's also a narrated overview of revision presentation where we have some of our transition team members talking about the changes more in detail. So those are great to take a look at in unison with the overview of revisions documents. But the new documents we're going to talk about tonight also can be used in parallel with those 2 other resources to help thinking about how you're transitioning in this current 23-24 school year. And you'll see that the documents we're going to talk about tonight exist for K through 8, and then the end of course courses Algebra 1 Geometry and Algebra 2. So we just wanted to walk you through some of the documents and kind of what their structure looks like. This is an example of the grade 4 standards document in the computation and estimation strand. And you'll see that the standard is listed at the top in bold. And then underneath of that are the specific knowledge and skills that are associated or connected to that particular standard. You'll also note on this particular slide, as in the 2016 standards, that an asterisk next to that knowledge and skill indicates that that is content for which the calculator is not allowed in terms of assessment when students are taking the SOL assessment. So that you'll see there's lots of similarity between these documents and the 2016 documents. The next slide shows the new numbering system for the standards, and it kind of makes it clear in which strand a standard exists. So this sample on the screen highlights 4.ce.1. The 4 indicates the grade level, grade 4. The CE indicates computation and estimation, the strand, the content strand. And then the 1 indicates that this is the first standard of learning in this particular strand. And then you'll see there's a key at the bottom of the screen that provides the abbreviations for each of the strands. This next slide shows a sample of the overview of revisions document that's been created for each grade or course. And you could see how there's the comparison between the 2016 standards shown on the left and the correlated 2023 standards shown on the right. And you can, as you look through these documents, you'll see that there are cases where they don't correlate exactly, and there might be notes or such that provide you more information about how the changes may have occurred between the two sets of standards. At the bottom of each of these overview of revision documents is a 4-quadrant chart. The upper 2 quadrants of the chart provide information in the upper left about the changes in the numbering. So this is an example from grade 3 about how the 2016 numbers now correlate to the 2023 standards of learning numbers. In the upper right-hand corner is information about prominent parameter changes and clarifications. So parameter changes and clarifications might be related to things like an increase or decrease in a limiter of the standard, but it might also be related to the depth of understanding of the content or the scope of the content. So be aware that these are not all inclusive of all the changes and parameter changes and clarifications, but they are the prominent ones that you should be familiar with. The last 2 quadrants of the chart in the overview of revision document show the deletions from the current grader course and then the additions from that grader course. So let's dig a little bit more deeply into these prioritization documents that you're here to hear more about tonight. So these documents outline the prominent content changes between 2016, the current standards of learning, and then the new 2023 revised standards of learning. And they include instructional notes to support divisions as they're making decisions about how to prioritize content during the 23-24 school year. So it's very important to note that that's an important piece of information. The school division will be making decisions about the prioritization of content. These documents are not intended to tell the school divisions teach this part of the 23 standards during the school year and don't teach these. We are just informing you about the changes in the standards, and it is the school division's choice as to how they are going to prioritize that content during this transition year. In conjunction with the 23 Math Standards of Learning Overview revision documents, these documents are a great tool in supporting that, planning that transition instruction. So as we discussed earlier, you might want to use these in unison and maybe even with some of those recorded PowerPoint slide presentations to help you think about how to incorporate content into the current 2016 standard instruction. And again, school divisions will best determine how to meet the needs of students when incorporating content. So there are instructional supports for the prioritization of content for all the grades K through 8, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, as I discussed earlier. And these documents are all structured very similarly. And as we mentioned before, are most powerful when used in conjunction with some of the other documents. So let's take a look at the 3 different parts of the structure of these documents. So there's basically 3 sections to the document. The first section is called the Critical Instructional Transition portion, and this includes critical content that could cause gaps in student learning if instruction's not provided during the 23-24 school year. So even for school divisions that might be an option 3 school division and in that they only intend to teach the 2016 standards this year, this is an important piece of this document to be aware of because there could be gaps if specific content is not addressed during the current school year. And we'll take a look at an example of that in just a moment. The second section of the document is called Overall Instructional Transitions. And there's basically these overall changes include content that spans across content in the grade level or the course, and it promotes deeper understanding of concepts. And we'll show you some examples of that as well. And then specific instructional transitions by strand. This is the majority of the document, and it includes suggestions for how, while while a teacher's teaching the 2016 standards, how to kind of fold in the 2023 standards of learning to blend the content together. So this slide shows an example from grade 2 in that there is third grade content currently in the 2016 standards of learning that is being moved to the second grade in the 2023 mathematics standards of learning, specifically addressing the number of minutes in an hour, the number of hours in a day, and also addressing congruent figures. So you can see the two examples here, 3.9C and 3.13. Those would be the 2016 standards. And then the 2023 standards of learning show that both those pieces of content have been moved to second grade. So these are considered critical instructional transitions, since a student during the 23-24 current school year who does not receive instruction in this content will also not receive content or instruction in this content next year, because it will no longer be taught in grade 3. So this is an example of what we mean by critical instructional transitions. And be aware that there are not specific instructional or critical instructional transitions for all grades or courses, just specific grades. The next section of these documents include an overall instructional transition section. And these are considered to be changes that promote deeper understanding of concepts. So you'll see on this particular slide the embedding of the 5 mathematical process goals and the infusion of the data cycle in standards addressing statistics. Are a couple of those that take a deeper dive into mathematics content for students. So this section of the document includes instructional notes that outline some of the shifts that might be needed or be considered, along with pointing out some of the content changes that might accompany those transitions. So that section will be helpful with more of a broader scope for those particular pieces. And then the third section of the instructional supports for prioritization of content documents address revisions that are specific to a grade level or course and are intended to support divisions and teachers in making those decisions about the content that might be folded into the instruction. And you'll see here that we've included a snip on the bottom of this slide from the correlation. Boy, I'm losing my words here, but this is the bottom is the overview of revisions document, and it shows a 5th grade snippet, and then the upper part of it is the current prioritization document that is associated with those changes. So you could see how helpful it would be to use these in unison. So I think I'm going to turn it over now to Deb Delosier, and she's going to dig a little more deeply into some of the elementary documents. Deb?
Thanks so much, Tina. We'll take a look now at some examples for each of the grade levels, kindergarten through 5th grade, to give you just a little bit of an insight of what these specific instructional transitions look like. So, Kristen, you've already transitioned, I guess. So what is showing on the screen is the K.3 C and D, which is an excerpt from the overview of revisions narrated PowerPoint, but shows a comparison between the 2016 and the newly adopted 2023 standards. So as you can see, the content of K.3 C and D are now part of that KNS1, G, H, I, and J in the 2023 standards. Any highlighted content in red means that is a change from the 2016 standard, a changed expectation. So the rectangle that you see in the middle there, that's called the number and number sense rectangle, that is an excerpt from the kindergarten prioritization document. And as Tina shared earlier in the presentation, it's school divisions may wish to use the prioritization document when planning for instruction based upon the options for transition and in determining how to supplement existing curriculum as content from the 2023 standards are incorporated. So notice in this example that you see for K.3D, again aligning to KNS1, I, and J, that the transition team has provided instructional notes, and this will be true for all of the prioritization documents, but the instructional notes are meant to support the folding in of this content. So in this instance, you notice that as teachers are teaching the 2016 standard, K.3D, it's suggested that when they're teaching students about the numbers between 11 and 19, which if you've ever, if you are a kindergarten teacher or you've ever worked with young children, the team numbers tend to be especially difficult for them. So the instructional team, the transition team rather, is recommending that objects, drawings, words, and numbers be used to help students to compose and decompose a number into 10 and some ones. And then additionally, in J, you note that when grouping objects by 10 to count, that students could determine the total number of objects in that group. For example, they will have been able to make 3 groups of 10, then they'll have those 6 leftovers, and that would be 36 total objects. So we'll move on to the grade 1 example now. So right now you see on the screen, again, an excerpt from the narrated PowerPoints that are also available online. You noticed on the screen that Tina shared earlier on that webpage, the 2023 Mathematics Standards of Learning webpage, the chart shows those narrated PowerPoints. So this slide is from that narrated PowerPoint, and it shows the content from 2016, the 1.6 content on problem solving with addition and subtraction. And that content is now embedded within SOL 1 CE1. And the prioritization note that Kristen's going to show on the screen includes this content and recommends that when students are determining the unknown whole number that will result in a sum or difference of 10 or 20, that it would be helpful if students have opportunities to use manipulatives such as math bead racks, double 10 frames, and or number paths. And that would really allow them to anchor those quantities to 10 and 20. This will really help to increase their fluency with decomposing and composing numbers to 20, as well as increase their problem-solving abilities. The grade 2 example focuses on time. And so again, you see the slide from the narrated PowerPoint, and 2.9 from the 2016 is now located in SOL 2 MG2. Students will continue to demonstrate an understanding of time by showing their time, by telling time, writing time, matching time to the nearest 5 minutes. But new to the grade level, moving from third grade, is the identifying the number of minutes in an hour and the number of hours in a day. And so the prioritization document provides instructional notes on including this content in multiple ways. One of the units of time piece that our second graders have to now learn as part of the 2023, one example of folding that content in would be by determining the best unit of time to measure a given activity, and to start with activities that are very common to students, such as brushing their teeth or traveling to a particular destination. For instance, a teacher might ask about how long does it take you to brush your teeth? Would you measure that in minutes, hours, days, or weeks? And obviously we know the answer is minutes, but it might take longer if they were traveling to a relative's house or maybe traveling on vacation. So you can see how they're thinking about the unit of time that would best be used to record that, that particular context. Jessica, we're going to let you go ahead and start with grade 3 example.
Great, thanks, Deb. So for grade 3, this example comes from the number and number sense strand. In the 2016 standards, students are working with 6-digit whole numbers for place value, and that is very similar in the 2023 standards. However, the 2016 standards explicitly call out reading numbers in standard form and in word form, and we felt that it was very prudent that students are also working with expanded form in the 2023 standards to help deepen their number sense. So Kristen, can you please pull over the animation? So using the overview of revisions document as well as the prioritization document, the transition team suggested that when reading and writing 6-digit whole numbers using standard and word form, students should have opportunities to read and write 6-digit whole numbers in expanded form as well, again, to help deepen that place value understanding. Our grade 4 example comes from measurement and geometry. In the current standards, students are expected to do area and perimeter of rectangles. And so adding in another bullet from our 2023 standards, bullet D, bullet E, identifying and representing rectangles with the same perimeter and different areas, or with the same area and different perimeters. So using these two documents together in unison, when students are studying area and perimeter in 4th grade, they can also start exploring the concept that rectangles can have the same perimeter but have different areas, and the concept that rectangles can have the same area with different perimeters. Again, this will help deepen their exploration into the concepts of area and perimeter. And the grade 5 example comes from the number and number sense strand. In the current 2016 standards, students explore and identify and describe characteristics of prime and composite numbers. And some new content that is added into the 2023 standards is determining the prime factorization of a whole number up to 100. So that content is very easily incorporated as students are studying the characteristics of prime and composite numbers. So again, using the prioritization document, while students are learning about prime and composite numbers, provide opportunities for students to explore prime factorization of a whole number up to 100. So these are just one example from each grade level, kindergarten through 5th grade, of how the overview of revisions documents and the prioritization documents can work together to support the transition to the new standards of learning.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Deb. Thank you, Jessica. My manners were not very good at the beginning of our session. I did not introduce our team. You've already met Jessica Brown. She's our math and intervention specialist, and Deb Delozier is an instructional specialist that deals mostly with elementary. And then Kristen Williams-Foss, she is a math and special education specialist, and she's been manning the slides for us tonight. So we are a happy team to be here and listen to any questions that you may have. We have a Q&A in the webinar. If you'd like to pose any questions, we'd be happy to hang out for a moment. I think I looked at a couple of the questions that we had. There is a secondary version of this particular webinar tonight. The first set of information is going to be very similar to what this elementary version included, but there will be more specific examples to secondary content. So if you would like to pop a bowl of popcorn and join us again this evening from 5:30 to 6:30, we'd be happy to have you join us for the secondary webinar. I don't see any additional questions at this time, but we will hang out here for a few moments. If you would like to pose some questions to us, we would be happy to let you know the answers, or at least do our best to give you the answers. But feel free if you are